Good morning, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with the severe weather outlook and discussion for Friday, March 27th, 2020, recorded around 10:24 a.m. Eastern Time. We have a lot of severe weather potential to talk about today, so let's go ahead and dive straight into it. Well, you can see here from the College of DuPage website, we are looking at a bit of an elongated front coming all the way from the California region all the way down through portions of Indiana and Kentucky, and even diving a little bit into southern Missouri. And that will provide the stage for cyclogenesis later today across portions of the Missouri, Kansas area, and that will also set the stage for a pretty decent severe weather potential tomorrow across portions of Illinois and Iowa. So we are looking at the moisture advection right now, and that continues to surge off to the north as we will get this pretty good cyclogenesis that's going to occur right now, and is probably already ongoing near Kansas and Missouri, the Kansas-Missouri border, kind of where this triple front is right here. And that's going to set the stage for a decent severe weather and tornado potential today across portions of Kansas and Missouri, including Topeka and just north of Springfield, including Kansas City, Missouri. So we will kind of look at the soundings now. This is coming out of 12Z Lake Charles, and you can notice we do have a substantial issue with our moisture. There's no severe weather potential today or any thunderstorm potential down this far south today, but you do notice a pretty good elevated mix layer, of course, associated with that dry air mass that's down here across the southern region, but our dew points at the surface are right around 70. We're looking at a 69 degree Fahrenheit dew point value, and our photographs aren't that bad either. We do have a nice kind of curved photograph like that, suggesting that we do have some wind shear feeding into this region, but obviously our cap is going to be the big problem. You would at least probably need closer to near 100 degrees to be able to break that cap, and obviously that's not going to happen today across the south there. Heading up to Fort Worth, though, we do start to get into a slightly better environment. First of all, just purely looking at the hodograph structure, we do have a better hodograph structure in general. Obviously, would like to still see that be a little bit more curved and whatnot, and a little bit more stretched out. But we do still have somewhat of a capping inversion, which is obviously going to be the problem. Our LCLs are way too high today. Right now, about 2,000 to 3,000 meters. You typically want about 1,000 or under for tornado-producing storms. However, there is, if we go back to the general risk area, we do have a marginal risk for severe storms, generally for some larger hail events down near Dallas. Our higher tornado potential today is going to occur right around on the southern periphery of the slight risk region, from Kansas City, Missouri, Topeka, and just south of there. Looking at the tornado potential, that's where it's going to be, the 5% region around Kansas City, Missouri, for a small isolated area. Even portions of northern Oklahoma, about north of Woodward, in the I-35 corridor could see some potential for tornado, and even a 2% risk, including St. Louis, Missouri, throughout the day today. But we head up to the Norman sounding. We do have a little bit more of elevated instability here above the capping inversion. You can see this is practically all of our cape in here, our elevated cape, running around 1,000. So we do have a little bit more of elevated instability. Our photographs are not as quite good. Basically, this horseshoe kind of structure is not the best for seeing tornado potential. So, of course, we will be kind of watching how that evolves throughout the day today. But you do notice that we could see some large hail in an environment sounding like this, with your decent elevated mix layer. Any heating and mixing would be able to decently break this cap. You would still probably need maybe around 84, 83 degrees to be able to break that, but with any heating today, we'll just kind of have to see. But this will certainly provide the way, if storms can break that cap, for some sufficient hailstorms potentially, and that's the main reason why we do have the marginal risk as far south as we do. That you can see the 5 hail area does include Oklahoma City, Norman region, and of course your more substantial hail threat's going to be within the slight risk area. Head up to Springfield, Missouri, and you can see we already have a way better sounding look. First of all, notice our photographs are way more curved, and this area right in between here in your storm motion vector, that kind of carves out our storm relative helicity in through here. So we're looking storm relative helicities in the 200 to 300 range. So more than sufficient for tornadoes. And you can see we do have a pretty good veering profile. However, a little bit more substantial veering within the first kilometer, which may be a little bit too strong for tornadoes to develop. So Springfield is not in that tornado threat for today. It's kind of on the very southern periphery, but we can get a pretty good idea of what's going to happen further to the north with this sort of environment. You do notice we do have an elevated mixed layer, and again, this will provide the way and pave the way for some potential for some stronger severe storms up to the north with that mixed layer. You also do not have a fully moist air mass all the way up to the triple pause, so that will provide us with some decent lifting if this cap can break, which it is a pretty substantial cap right now. So it is a relatively stable environment currently. Notice our dew points are only at 61 at the surface, but a ton of elevated instability if we can get that going. And we're going to jump up to Topeka, Kansas, and you notice Topeka with a very nicely curved photograph here. Storm relative felicities up in the 400 range, so this will provide the way and pave the way for a more substantial severe weather threat. If you jump back to the Storm Prediction Center here and their tornado threat, Topeka, Kansas is kind of right about in here, so it's on the very northern end of that 2% risk, but obviously between here and Springfield, including Kansas City, Missouri, could see the potential for a more substantial severe weather threat going into later today. So as the Topeka, Kansas, obviously you do not have any sort of instability at the surface. You do have a pretty good CAPE value here. It is a very strongly capped environment, but again, with any sort of heating and mixing throughout the day, you would probably only need a parcel of maybe about 80 degrees or so to be able to break that, which could be broken. And again, you do have some elevated instability. This is our 12Z soundings, so obviously going in through the day today, we will see our LCLs are decently low, on the order of about 1,000 to running near 2,000. So our LCLs are low enough. If we can get them just a tad bit lower, that's what we'd like. And jumping up to ILX, Central Illinois, again, not as much of a curved photograph at all, pretty much a just flat-lined photograph-like structure. In the lower, first kilometer, we do have enough of that curvature, but once you start getting up to 3 kilometers and above, there's almost no curvature with that. It is a pretty moist adiabatic profile the whole way up. We do not have any sort of EML, elevated mixed layer, up in this region, but our temperatures are only 45 over 44, so it is a pretty moist at the surface. Relative humidity wise, our LCS are going to obviously be higher, and this is not a severe weather profile. However, we will get that EML to start occurring over the day today. The elevated mixed layer will build, and we will have another update here about 18Z to kind of show those differences between 12Z and 18Z data. So taking a look, this is coming off the high resolution HRRR, and we're going to first check out the dew points here. We're going to first look at the dew points. These are pretty helpful, and you can also tell we do have somewhat of a bit of a dry line-like feature associated with somewhat of a cold front associated out here, and potentially even somewhat of a warm front. So it is potential that we could be looking at a triple point located somewhere in here today, and this is going to serve the focus for a better severe weather potential across portions of eastern Kansas and through portions of Missouri, including Kansas City. And you do notice if we stretch that out here to our 18Z guidance, you do notice that we do get that cyclogenesis here in northern Kansas and portions of Missouri, and that will continue to track north through the day today and through tonight, and set up for a potential significant tornado potential here tomorrow. We'll talk about that here in just a minute. Do notice our dry line-like future cuts through portions of Oklahoma with that surge, that cyclogenesis, that surge of moisture, strong 60s and 70s dew points with that strong advection will continue throughout the day today. And if we kind of hover over here to about 0Z tonight, this will be going about 7 o'clock Eastern, or 7 o'clock Eastern time. This will be providing for the 70 dew points to stretch all the way in through portions of Missouri. And you can already start to see our severe weather potential setting up tomorrow with this warm front lifting north, and our cyclogenesis looking somewhat of about right here's where your low pressure would be, with somewhat of a trailing front like that. And you can also notice somewhat of a dry line like future located around here. So that's going to set the stage for what could be a pretty substantial severe weather threat and potential tornado threat tonight. You can already start to see where your triple point would be, and if you're chasing, this would be the area you kind of want to sit and chase around. So obviously it's going to be probably the best area, but these storm motions could be a little bit quick tonight, so that's going to be the only problem. Yeah, it's about 12Z tomorrow, or actually we'll go 6Z tomorrow. You notice these 60 dew points are already up and through portions of central Illinois, and we go to 12Z tomorrow. You notice that we have cyclogenesis back out here with a trailing front. It's roughly about there. Obviously, your warm frontal position is going to be roughly about here for the day tomorrow. So that's going to be what we're looking at for the day tomorrow. And of course, by 18Z tomorrow, cyclogenesis and your severe weather outbreak across portions of Iowa and Illinois is about to begin. So we'll take a look here at the composite reflectivity coming off the high resolution 12Z HRRR. And we'll move it forward to 18Z today. Notice not a lot going within the first couple of hours here, but you do notice what we're going to be focusing on here is this area roughly in through about here, with the greatest tornado potential roughly located in through about here today. Moving that forward to 0Z, we expect late time initiation and somewhat fast storm vectors though today. We'll move this up to about 6Z. You can notice, or roughly right before 6Z in the morning, you can see these cluster-like thunderstorms developing all across portions of Missouri, Kansas, and Illinois. And these could initially develop as somewhat discrete supercells, and we do kind of expect somewhat discrete storm modes initially to begin with, moving into more of a linear cluster-like future. You also notice by 6Z tomorrow some initiation down and through Oklahoma, and that will kind of pave the way for some isolated, elevated supercells with hail potential there in Oklahoma. We move forward to about 12Z tomorrow. You notice these storms in Oklahoma begin to really weaken as they move across in through Missouri, and now you're starting to get your scattered cellular development out here. And by 18Z tomorrow, you notice, or move that up to about 20Z, and by 20Z tomorrow, there's our supercells developing down there in through portions of Iowa. So we're going to take a look at just a couple forecast soundings. We're going to pick about 2Z here in portions of Kansas and really look at that sounding. What this looks like to me is certainly we do have a really nice curved hodograph structure, obviously really nice curved hodograph in the lower levels, pretty good veering, but we have a little too much veering here. That's a little too much veering. Our cape is certainly not rooted at the ground, so it is going to be looking not like a tornado potential for portions of southern Kansas in through this morning, or in through tomorrow morning. We'll take a look here at the 4Z soundings. Just ahead of these cluster of thunderstorms, you do notice that we do get a more of a laxed hodograph structure and a more of a veering structure, but still probably a little too much veering here within the first kilometer of the atmosphere. Storm motions would be off towards the north and east. Would be pretty strong storm vectors, though, probably at least looking at 40 or 50 knots of storm vectors, so that's going to provide for fast storm movement. Obviously a pretty saturated environment also throughout this time, and again, your cape, though, is really not going to be elevated or leveled at the surface. You're going to have a little bit of a capping inversion throughout this time too, but any forced ascent would easily be able to break that. So you're probably going to be looking at a lot of forced convection across this area throughout the night tonight. and then through tomorrow morning. We'll take a look at 12Z here in Illinois to get ready for severe weather potential tomorrow, before we kind of look at our actual severe weather threats tomorrow. And you can certainly see we do not have that classic structure here at 12Z, but if you jump out, we can jump out here to about 18Z tomorrow here in Illinois. And right by 18Z, you notice the air mass modification with about 3,000 CAPE, a very strong CAPE and an unstable air mass. There is absolutely no capping inversion at this time. Certainly you can tell that there is somewhat of an elevated mixed layer present, and that curved hodograph structure setting the way for a particularly dangerous event tomorrow. We head out to initiation time of these discrete supercells, and you will notice that by our time here, there we go, we have nearly 4,000 CAPE, very strong curved hodograph structure. Notice here this will kind of curve out or cave out our storm relative helicities in the 200 to 300 range. Storm vectors will be one problem though, probably at least 35 to 40 knots of storm vectors, and you're easily looking at a nice, very unstable air mass with not too much veering in the atmosphere. This is going to set the way for a significant tornado potential tomorrow. In fact, the Storm Prediction Center has gone and upgraded to a moderate risk of severe weather across portions of Illinois tomorrow, including the Peoria region, with a 10% region extending into portions of Indiana, and even the 5% risk all the way in through portions of Ohio for the day tomorrow. But the most significant severe weather risk is going to be right along this warm front tomorrow, located probably something like that throughout the day tomorrow, like that. And you're also going to have your low pressure system right about in here through about the day tomorrow. That's going to set up and provide for these significant severe storms to develop. And of course, we are going to have to keep tabs on this, but again, a significant severe weather risk is in store for the day tomorrow across portions of Illinois. Hope you guys did enjoy this, and stay safe everyone, and we will have another update later this afternoon.